Everybody follows someone. Whether we realise it or not, what or who we follow determines the values we hold, the behaviours we replicate, and the people we become. Yet few of us truly spend time asking the questions that matter, of the things that matter most to us. Hi, I'm Becky Rowe. I'm a graduate from Moorlands College and I'm the Kids Assistant at Coastline Vineyard Church and a primary school chaplain at the Bridge Youth Project. In this 6-week series, we ask the hard questions of a faith that asks us to follow, yet often appears in culture as irrelevant, outdated, riddled with errors, and full of mythology. Welcome to Follow, a series asking the questions that matter, of the things that matter the most. If you want to bring down a celebrity, politician, or leader, it's really simple. Dig up some dirt. Find the skeleton they want to keep hidden in the closet. Expose them. It's fail-safe. Allegations of immorality and unethical behaviour surround many of the figureheads of established religions, and people are told not to question. But 2,000 years on, Jesus remains the central figure of human history, with more written about him than any other person or thing. Just think how many people can't help but use his name to curse every single day. Why do people keep talking about him? Countless people have tried to tear him down, but no argument stands up to scrutiny. The reality is this: if Jesus fails, the whole thing falls apart. That's why people keep at it. The most famous verse in the Bible is John 3:16. For God loved the world so much that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him will not die but have eternal life. The Apostle Paul explains in Romans 8 that because Jesus died, there is now no condemnation for those who believe in him, because through Jesus Christ you are released from the law. The do's and don'ts of the law were powerless to save people for the sole reason that we mess up, we do wrong, and harm ourselves, others, and the world. Humanity leans into what is bad, so God sent his perfect Son to die a perfect death to satisfy the law. Everything, therefore, relies on the death and resurrection of Jesus. The idea that he was a real historical figure is hardly debated. In terms of forensics, while there is no trace of evidence, such as hair or fingerprints, there is a physical evidence, such as archaeological finds, though sadly, no photographs back then. But there is an overwhelming amount of testimony, both verbal and written. Even if you gave the 4 eyewitness accounts, Matthew, Mark, Luke and John, a pass, you discover that Tacitus, a Roman historian in AD 115, who had no vested interest here, stating that Nero set up as the culprits and punished with the utmost cruelty a class hated for their abominations, who were commonly called Christians. Christus, from whom their name is derived, was executed at the hands of Pontius Pilate in the reign of Tiberius. Another, but this time was a Jewish historian called Josephus, writing between AD 93 and 94, said, "At this time there was a wise man called Jesus, and his conduct was good, and he was known to be virtuous. And many people from among the Jews and from other nations became his disciples. Pilate condemned him to be crucified and to die, and those who had become his disciples did not abandon his discipleship. They reported that he had appeared to them 3 days after his crucifixion, and that he was alive. Accordingly, he was perhaps the Messiah, of whom the prophets had recounted wonders." There is more evidence for Jesus Christ than Julius Caesar. Jesus lived as a travelling Jewish rabbi or teacher and died what is one of the most torturous ways ever invented, crucifixion. It was so harsh that no Roman was allowed to be executed that way. But it's the claim that he was resurrected that presents the biggest challenge. Paul, in a letter to Christians in Corinth, Greece, put it simply, "If Christ had not been raised from the dead, your faith is pointless." The first followers were convinced that he had. The grave was empty on the 3rd day, and the report was made to the Jewish authorities, who, noting that Jesus had previously talked about rising again, agreed to spread the rumour that these followers had stolen the body. Do the claims hold weight? First, if the disciples stole it, forget moving the stone, they would have had to get past around 16 soldiers who had been placed due to the threat. The idea that the soldiers had been asleep is not feasible. The Romans would have punished them severely, possibly executed them. And what would be the end game? Why would they go to their own graves telling the world Jesus had risen? What would have been in it for them? Second, if the authorities removed the body, they would only keep alive a rumour. They wanted the problem gone. Third, what if the women went to the wrong tomb? In their distress and confused state, the accounts state that over 500 people encountered Jesus over the next few days. And finally, a popular theory from the 1600s, and also maintained by Muslims, is that Jesus swooned on the cross, but these were professionals. They knew how to execute someone. The level of detail is immense. When the soldier came to Jesus, he was surprised that he was already dead and pierced his side with a spear. It records that blood and water came out. Essentially, Jesus had gone into what's called hypovolemic shock as a result of losing so much blood through being flogged and beaten. The heart would race to pump blood that was not there. He then collapsed due to the low blood pressure, the kidneys shutting down to preserve body fluids. This would lead to extreme thirst. The sustained increased heart rate would have caused fluid to gather in the sac around the heart and around the lungs. The fluid around the heart is called pericardial effusion, and the fluid gathering around the lungs is pleural effusion, explaining why when the spear pierced both the lungs and the heart, blood and water came out. The evidence suggests resurrection. Doubts are welcomed, alternatives should be offered and explored. Without a doubt, it's the most challenging aspect to reconcile, because it's miraculous, out of the ordinary. With that to one side, you are left with what he claimed about himself. He didn't just offer moral teachings, but himself as the object of our faith. As John 3:16 says, "Whoever believes in him will not die." He referred to himself metaphorically as the bread of life, the light of the world, the good shepherd, the resurrection and the life, the Son of God, the true vine, the way, the truth and the life, the only way to know the Father. C.S. Lewis summed our position up well. We are faced with a frightening alternative. The man we are talking about was just what he said, or else a lunatic or something worse. Now it seems to me obvious that he was neither a lunatic nor a fiend, and consequently, however strange or terrifying it may seem, I have to accept the view that he was and is God. God has landed in this enemy-occupied world in human form. He isn't an optional extra. He claimed to be God, and it is through him that a lens is offered and allows all our questions to be answered. It is through him that allows us to have access to God, who we have rebelled against. If Jesus is who he says he is, then what does that mean for you? Mad, bad, or God? What evidence can you point to for each one?